Hello, how are you? My name is Flávio de Leão Bastos Pereira. I am a professor of international human rights law at Mackenzie Presbyterian University in São Paulo, Brazil. Thank you very much for this honored invitation to present some short considerations of the Comprehensive Convention on International Terrorism, which I will name from now on as CCIT. So thank you very much. In my opinion, this is a very important issue, a very important subject. And this, especially the question of terrorism, must be debated, and we need it. The world really needs a convention on terrorism, because the international structure is under attack nowadays, and as far as we go from the international law, more dangerous our world must be. So I'd like to present some short considerations, a kind of overview on the Comprehensive Convention on International Terrorism, CCIT, as I said, a project developed within the United Nations framework starting in the late 1990s. The CCIT is a proposed treaty that aims to create a unified, legal binding international response to terrorism, addressing one of the most pressing global security issues of the modern era. Prior to the CCIT, as we can remember, international efforts to combat terrorism were fragmented. Several sectoral treaties existed, dealing with specific acts like hijacking, hostage-taking, or terrorist bombings. However, there was no comprehensive framework, nor a universal definition of terrorism, which is so polemic. The 1990s saw an escalation of terrorist incidents worldwide, which intensified demands for a more holistic legal instrument. In response, in 1996, India introduced the initial proposal, and by 2000, the draft of the Comprehensive Convention on International Terrorism was formally presented for negotiations at the United Nations. The CCIT seeks to achieve several key goals. First, it aims to provide a single, universally accepted definition of terrorism. Second, it imposes obligations on states to criminalize terrorist acts in their national laws. Third, it adopts the principle of oddere adjudicare, which means that states must either prosecute or extradite suspected terrorists. Finally, it promotes international cooperation in areas like, for example, judicial assistance, intelligence sharing, and financial measures against terrorism. If we consider the main features of the draft, we could mention, for example, its Article 2, which offers a general definition of terrorism, describing it as any act intended to cause death or serious bodily injury to civilians or non-combatants, aiming to intimidate a population or compel a government or an international organization to act. Other key articles could be mentioned, and for example, those ones which require states to criminalize such acts, to establish jurisdiction over offenders, and either prosecute or extradite suspects. The convention also includes preventive measures such as freezing terrorists' assets and prohibiting their financing. Despite strong support, negotiations have remained deadlocked for several reasons. Firstly, the definition of terrorism itself, as I said before, is highly contested. Some states, particularly from the global south, argue that legitimate struggles for self-determination, such as anti-colonial movements, should not be categorized as terrorism. Yes, and we must take care of that, because the historical experience shows us that example by example, legitimated movements for self-determination or for social guarantees are not rarely criminalized as terrorists. So we must take care of that. Second, another aspect deals with the state versus non-state actors. As indeed is we have some connections with the ideas I have just mentioned, but there's a debate over whether acts or by national armed forces potentially infringing on state sovereignty. Thirdly, there are human rights concerns. Many fear that a broad or a vague definition could allow governments to label political dissidents or minority groups as terrorists, leading to abuse. We must remember many cases about that. For example, the Kurds and its the context of the Kurds in Iran. Sorry, the context of the Kurds in Turkey. The Armenians in Artsakh, in Azerbaijan, and have many other situations in the world. As of today, the Comprehensive Convention on International Terrorism has not been adopted. It continues to be discussed, particularly within the United Nations Sixth Committee, which deals with legal matters. Although consensus remains elusive, the draft is an important reference point in ongoing conversations about strengthening international counterterrorism law. In conclusion, the Comprehensive Convention for Terrorism, the CCIT, represents an ambitious effort, we must recognize it, to harmonize the global fight against terrorism under a single cohesive legal framework. However, overcoming the political, ideological, and legal divisions among states really remains a major challenge, especially today when we can recognize a kind of rupture with the stability, a weak stability, we could say for sure, but an instability caused by Trump's government, as we can justify nowadays. However, future negotiations must carefully balance the need for effective counter-terrorism measures with the protections of human rights and the legitimate rights of peoples under international law. Well, I wish to congratulate all of you, Professor Heibatullah and other academic staff that organized, conceived this important seminar, this important event. The dialogue is the only way we have to guarantee the world peace. Congratulations for that. thank you for the invitation, and that's all. Thank you very much.